Welcome to The Unconventional Path, entrepreneurship and innovation stories and ideas. Hello, I'm bela.and.mike.
And I'm Mike Wasserman.
Today, we are excited to be joined by Jimmy Hickey. Jimmy is the founder of Findlay Hats, a company that makes and sells creative and really useful hats.
Yeah, this is a great story, Bela. An innovative guy with a ton of energy, added a cool twist to really what a commodity product, hats, baseball hats. And then what he did was not just invent a hat, but he was really an amazingly shrewd marketer and has built an avidly loyal community around these hats.
Yeah, I think there's two key points that our listeners should listen to in this episode. Number one is that yes, there are opportunities in commodities. Baseball caps are a commodity, and yeah, you might have one for the Yankees or the Red Sox or your favorite team, but fundamentally, after the logo, they're sort of commodities. And he put a couple of innovations into the baseball cap, and now has a very unique product that is fundamentally in a very crowded market. However, as you say, I think the most important thing he did was this notion of building a community of users and supporters. And he's really, really very good at that, in building this community. And then that community has energy and people want to be part of it. And all of a sudden, these things become important to members who identify within that community. And all of a sudden, they start buying lots of hats. So I think it's a great example of that. And I think Jimmy did a really, really good job on those two aspects of it.
Yeah, and it served him in two markets. So listen for this, because I think this is an interesting point. He's figured out a way to make this work in the B2C, the business to consumer market, but he's also grown a really healthy B2B, business to business market. And it all stems from this user base. So I think it's really cool. And also the other thing that people should look out for is this is not just an online business, and it's not just online customer outreach. He does a lot of face-to-face, and it's a core tenet of his business. And that's something that everybody should remember, that don't just rely on the internet, that really this idea of personal communication is huge rather than just an Instagram post or a Facebook post. So I don't know. What do you think? Should we get to it?
Yeah, let's go, Mike.
All right.
Let's jump into the interview with Jimmy Hickey, founder of Findlay Hats. Hey, Jimmy, how are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
Excellent. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much for doing this. So I really appreciate it. And it's always nice to have exciting guests like yourself. I was looking at your website and the things that you guys have done and your products, and it looks really cool.
Yeah, thank you kindly. We're giving it our best out here.
Yeah. So can you take a second and introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Jimmy Hickey, and I run a hat company called Findlay Hats. We make hats that are built for good times.
Excellent. Excellent. So how long have you been doing this, Jim?
Just about, 7 years now. The company's been around 6.5, but we started around 7 years ago.
Okay. And when you say hats, so tell me what that means. I think of all sorts of hats.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of good hats out there on the planet. Ours are just a little different. So we run with mostly your standard like baseball style hat, be it a bent bill or a flat bill hat. But what makes our hat stand out is we have a patented stampede lace across the front of the hat. So this lace you can tie in different styles, you can use different colors, but most importantly, that lace is designed to be brought down around your chin to keep your head on your head through good times. So next time you're out there on the boat, jumping out of helicopters, whatever the activity may be, you don't have to worry about your hat blowing away in the wind. We also have a hidden stash pocket inside all of our hats, which is great for like some spare cash, business cards. And then also we have a lifetime warranty on all of our hats because we want people to get out there, have good times, wearing our stuff without worrying about it getting damaged or broken. So if anything happens to the hat, we'll fix it or replace it for free.
Oh, wow. So it sounds like you've taken the baseball cap, the generic baseball cap, and sort of moved it up a couple notches here.
Yeah, absolutely. The very early kind of catchphrase came to me in a dream. I'm not even joking. It was like a right before going to sleep. That little moment of clarity. The phrase was elevating headwear one hat at a time. And so yeah, we basically took a standard hat and just made it just a little bit different, a little bit better, a little more features. And then product side alone, we also yeah, anything good on your end?
Yep, we're good. Yep,
Okay,
it
cool.
dropped out for a second there, but yeah, we're good.
Awesome. So other than the product, we also do a lot of the modifications in-house right here in Portland, Oregon. So we do all of the embroidery, we do the laser cut leather patches, we stitch those in-house, we add our grommets, we sublimate or screen print our pockets, we serge them, we install them, we cut, tie, and style the laces. So it's a labor of love. We do a lot of production right here in Portland, and that's another little piece that stands out from our company, in that a lot of other major hat companies, they order their hats from their manufacturer overseas, they show up in a bag, and they ship to the customer in that same bag, never really touched by anyone that actually is involved directly with the company. So we have a pretty big production facility here, and we do a lot of the production in-house, and we're really proud of what we do there as well.
Oh, wow. Wow. That sounds really cool. So what did you call that strap that goes around your chin? There was a name for that.
Yeah, the Stampede lace. Although if you're up on the mountain, you can call it the avalanche lace. Maybe if you're out in the water, the tsunami lace. But we generally run with the Stampede lace.
Okay, but is that like left over from the Cowboys?
Exactly. We didn't definitely we didn't realize that it actually had a name from the cowboy era, or from just Western culture in general, until someone kind of at a trade show let us know, and we're like, oh, well, that's just a perfect name for it already. So we ran with it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I often think about one of the challenges. I'm a sailor, so sometimes I'm out on windy days, and the trouble with a baseball cap is it always blows off. And so I have another type of hat that I wear that has a Stampede strap on it, a chin strap on it, so the wind doesn't take it away. So now that you have invented this baseball cap, which are much more comfortable to wear, a lot more stylish than this other hat that I wear with the Stampede strap, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely happy that they exist out there, and it's super interesting because, like you said, as a sailor, there's some very practical uses, and some real world situations where you'll want to keep your hat on your head. But what's super interesting is we have built a pretty cool community of customers that are that aren't buying it just for the function alone. And it's kind of cool to see it come full circle, that it has the function, but we have people who just use it as an accessory, just use it as a conversation piece, or like to tie it in different styles. So it has a couple different selling points through the whole thing, which is definitely helped us stay around as long as we have.
Yeah, yeah. I imagine it's an extremely competitive marketplace, right? Selling hats.
The thing is, there are so many other, almost every company has a hat. But talk about competitive, it's also, they're all possible customers, because our hat is simply better. So a piece of our business, about 20%, is actually making headwear for other companies. So we collaborate with brands that are big and small. We work with like your local pizza shop, to a coffee shop, to some pretty like large recognizable names. Like we've worked with ESPN and the X Games. We've worked with a handful of pretty large manufacturers, like we've made hats for Toyota. So while the headwear space is competitive, we're not just trying to compete in headwear, we're also trying to provide headwear. It's like, especially what's really cool with some of these smaller companies that we've worked with, we have so many collectors of our hats that will collaborate with a coffee shop, for example. They only order 24 hats, and our collectors will buy out their hats in like a week or two, and they'll want to order more. So it's kind of cool that we're able to provide our product as an upgrade to their existing product, their existing hats. I mean, side by side, if you put our hat next to a generic hat, if they're about the same price, which they are, ours has more selling points and usually will sell head to head against its competitor. And then, they're able to just, there's multiple benefits on there where it's competition, but also their customers for us.
Yeah. Well, it's really marvelous. And there's been a lot of great examples, over history of individuals who have taken what is sort of like a generic item, a baseball cap, done some creative, clever things to it, like you have, and then turned it into a sort of a differentiated product that is, really sought out by, like you said, collectors and customers, et cetera, and have done that both from a functional standpoint and from a style standpoint. So that's really a great accomplishment.
Thank you. It's been more or less my life's work for the last 7 years. So
Yeah.
you know.
So let's go back a little bit in time. Let's go back to Jimmy when he was a young lad. Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Longview, Washington, or Washington. You can call it whatever you want. Yeah, that's Southwest Washington, about an hour north of Portland, Oregon, where I live now and where the company's based out of, and 2 hours south of Seattle, and about an hour east of the coast.
Okay. And is there entrepreneurship in your family?
No, not at all. My dad's in the medical field, and my mom is an interior designer. Granted, she did kind of work independently she worked independently, but she definitely, wasn't running a full-fledged business or anything like that.
Yeah. And did you go to university, Jimmy?
Yeah, I went to 1 year of commercial photography school in Seattle.
Oh, very nice. So,
yeah,
have you always had sort of a creative side to yourself?
Yeah, coming from a photography background, since I was in probably like middle school is when I first picked up a camera recreationally, with my group of friends, that I would always, if I had a little point and shoot, I'd be the one trying to take pictures, and I did find a creative outlet through that. But I really didn't find photography until high school, where my dad got a Sony DSLR. This is 2006, I want to say. This is right when DSLR cameras became okay digital quality stuff, but they weren't competitively priced. They were pretty expensive at the time.
Yeah.
And so my dad got a DSLR for Christmas from my grandparents, and he let me play around with it. And that's kind of where my photo love kind of grew from there. And then from taking photos of everything, I slowly grew a photo business, and kind of went all over the place from there.
Yeah. So you started a photography business?
Yeah, I started when I was a sophomore in high school. I was doing senior portraits for students. I'd be taking sports photos of the local high school or my high school's sporting events. I come from a tournament paintball background, if you can believe that. It's a very interesting subculture, but I played competitive paintball for years, and I actually did a lot of photo work in that industry as well. So I would charge teams to take photos of them, and so that was another little outlet. But I mean, I was making okay to pretty good money at the time. I got published in a couple magazines, and still to this day, I love photography, and I do the majority of our photo content work for Findlay. But yeah, so I mean, I was building my photo business while I was in high school, and able to take full advantage of being a young photographer in a time where I was just a little bit ahead of the curve before Instagram, before people were really picking up photography, and it was so saturated with hobbyists and advanced amateurs and people that were trying to make a living with it. It made it a lot more difficult for the established pros too.
Yeah. And what came after your photography business? Sort of what happened to that, and what followed it?
Nice. So I'll do a quick rundown. Basically, went to photo school for a year and dropped out because I was having a tough time balancing my professional photo career and schoolwork. And I came to the conclusion the same day my professors came to the conclusion independently that they called me in for a meeting. They're like, "Hey, we think you should take the next year off and pursue your career because you're not able to give school 100%, but we want you to see where that goes." And legitimately the day before, I came to that same conclusion that I should try to take the next year off. So I kind of took that as an omen and ran with it. This is 2010, and I pushed as hard as I could as a photographer. I did a lot of senior portraits. Those are my bread and butter. I did a handful of commercial work. I got to shoot a lot of professional sports like NFL. I never got to shoot MLB, which was too bad because I was really looking forward to shoot the Mariners. So I shot a handful of different sports, didn't make much money there, did a handful of commercial jobs, with really the most noteworthy client I ever worked with was Nike running, Nike football, and soccer. And it was something that really fueled me creatively and something that I really enjoyed. But like I kind of hinted at earlier, the photography market got super, super saturated with, the barrier of entry was not there anymore, where you can buy a $300, couple-year-old Canon that is top of the line now, good quality stuff that will get you through most of the 99% of what you need to shoot.
Yeah, well, and everyone has a camera in their hand today. Everybody.
Exactly.
And even as they say, a blind chicken gets a kernel of corn every once in a while. Every once in a while, everyone can take a great picture. It just sort of happens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, I'm all for, that. I love people taking more photos. The world isn't oversaturated with good photos. The world could always use a good way to capture things. And I for sure have no problem with, every single camera or every single phone in the world having a great camera on it. I think it's awesome. And we're getting a lot of, good, creative benefit from it in a handful of ways from it. So no problem with that. But as an individual, it was just tough to make a living. Senior portraits were super saturated. Commercial work was extremely tough to come by. The only client I ever had that actually paid what I was taught to charge in photo school was Nike. And I love them for that. I'll be loyal to them to the day I die, because they were the only people that actually paid what we were taught to charge for commercial photography work. And now it's on the other end of it as a business. I understand that it's expensive to pay those rates for a day rate for a commercial photo shoot. Either way, so super saturated, and I just wanted to work on something else. And I had a few other ideas. I've worked closely with a clothing company for years, and I saw the way my buddy ran it, and always thought that I could do something similar. The hat idea for the Stampede laces, I actually had, I invented that when I was in middle school, like before I could even drive. We were rafting down the mighty Toutle River. Long story short, I lost my favorite hat. It's tragic. I had to spend the rest of my day without a hat on my head. I got sunburnt. I had a really embarrassing halo haircut, and I just didn't want to not have a hat again. So the next time I went rafting, I cut my shoelaces off, put a hole in my hat, and tied the lace around my chin. And I called it my water hat. And I wore that every time I went rafting, every time I went out on my friend's boat, just all the time. And people would always ask me, man, that hat's so cool. Where'd you get it? And I told them I made it myself. And they're like, well, if you make more, I'll buy one. So I had that idea in the back of my head for years. And then finally, when it came time to, okay, maybe I should try to find something to stay busy through the off season, I had that idea and about 3 or 4 other ideas. And this is actually a good takeaway for anyone that is on the fence about what to do if they're stuck between a couple ideas. This worked extremely well for me, and I learned it in a business class, it was like a 2-month business course I took. But basically, you lay out your ideas on like a grid, and then you basically rank them in on a 1 to 5 scale. Which one do you enjoy the most? Which one are you best at? And which one has the potential for the most growth? And then if there's any other metrics you want, you can kind of add that to the end. But you just, rank each one of those according to where you think it ranks out of 5. And then whichever one has the most points at the end might be the idea that has the most legs. And when I did that, the hat idea won, and decided to move forward with it from there.
Oh, cool. So how do you go about starting a hat business?
Google. Yeah, I didn't know anything, man. It was a lot of research, a lot of time, energy, a lot of trips to Michael's craft store. My girlfriend at the time, Sarah, who's our co-founder and still works here to this day, as our head seamstress, she was super helpful in the beginning too, because she's way craftier and just better at that type of stuff than me too. So, she figured out like our pocket situation and how to get those in motion. So really there's no playbook on how to run a business, let alone how to run a hat business. So it just took a lot of research, a lot of podcasts, a lot of, just a lot of moving parts. I can't, a lot of research to get there because there's no set playbook on it.
So one of the things that I always find interesting is, people who design things, whether they be, clothing or some fancy electronics. At some point in time, you got to say, okay, this is it. I'm done making it better. I'm going to start selling it. How did you make that decision?
Yeah, that you make such a good point there. I couldn't agree more that is an important thing for anyone in a position that has a power move they want to make to do. For me, it wasn't too crazy of a ascendant moment. Coming from a photography background, a huge part of being a photographer is trusting your creative eye and vision, and knowing that your client hired you to capture them, to capture this event, to whatever, and they trust your direction, and you need to trust your direction. So with that in mind, I was coming from years of trusting my photo gut, trusting my creative vision, trusting that I have an eye for something that people like, and that I need to just put it out there in the world and accept that it's going to work out. And that's scary for sure. Anyone that is in the creative field can attest to that it's definitely intense putting something out there to the world and not knowing how it's going to be, responded to. As far as the actual validation for the product, not just my own creative limitations or worrying or doubts that people wouldn't accept it, I posted a photo on Instagram of the hat that said, basically like, hey, I'm looking at building this hat. If I made one, would you be interested in one? And in like 10 minutes, I had like 30 comments that all said like, yeah, that looks cool, I'd buy one. And I screenshotted that. Actually, I just found it last week, the original post, and then I deleted it right after that and decided, okay, this is enough momentum to move forward. But to summarize, I think it's important you just have to do it. You can sit around and wait for the perfect time for it to come around, and it never will. You'll never have everything lined up perfectly. You can't let perfection be the enemy of good, or great be the enemy of good. I don't know. It's never going to be a perfectly polished thing. You just got to get it out there. You can adjust it as you go. The important thing is just to do it, just to get it out there into the world. And yeah. Yeah.
Well said, Jimmy. So your first hat, the one that you made, your first production run, how big was your first quote unquote production run?
So at the time, we didn't have any embroidery machines. We didn't have any production in-house other than adding the grommet and the pocket and the laces. So we took it to a local jacket maker. They make Letterman jackets. And we had about 80 hats, and I think it was probably 6 or 7 styles maybe. And we took them in, and they embroidered them for us, and we modified them and got them ready to go. So yeah, I'd say about 80 hats, and the original investment was, I want to say, around $1,400 to start everything.
Yeah. And where did you sell those hats? What was your channel? What was your outlet?
So we did our first opening just at my friend's retail store to launch the brand. But then after that, it was pretty much entirely online through our website, findlayhats.com. At the time, we were using Squarespace. And what's funny is the night before we launched, I stayed up all night working really hard to get it, perfected and ready to go. And about 7 a.m., it's like, all right, we're time to launch it. I'm going to launch the website, and I'm going to go to bed. I've been up all night. Like, I'll wake up and we'll see how things are going. And that was a rookie move because when I launched the website, I forgot to turn on our payment processor. So we had people that were trying to buy, and they weren't able to buy for a couple hours until I woke up and realized that I made a mistake, and it all went smooth. But yeah, it was an interesting way to start the ordeal. But yeah, mostly through our website at the beginning.
And how did you sort of promote your brand and in the early days? Because one of the things is, right, if you search for hats if you Google hats, you'll get a lot of hats out there. So how do you drive business to the website? How did you develop your brand?
So early on, it was very heavily word of mouth. We did not have the budget to pay people to, do things for us. We didn't have the budget to advertise. We didn't have friends in high places that could get us featured. We didn't have very many industry connections or big names to attach ourselves to. Through my photo business, I had a pretty good network of like regional heroes and people with names in their cities. And we started sending hats to those strategic people, especially in the Northwest. And kind of through them, we were able to spread, we were able to generate content, we were able to slowly get our name out there. And the focus really early on was we wanted to be the hometown hero. We wanted to be, this small brand from an area that had a really core following, but we didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves to just be located in one area. So it was important that while we were seeing growth in a few key cities in the Northwest, we didn't want to get just stuck as like that Northwest brand. We really wanted to spread our wings and fly across the country and the world. So we would, try to get people in different areas. We'd send free hats to someone with maybe a couple thousand followers, in exchange for a shout out or photos of them wearing it. Early on, we did a lot of contests. Like once a week, we would do a contest. We still do that to this day. But really, the most cost-effective thing, something that we still do to this day, and something that you can't really scale, is we have as many one-on-one direct human interactions with our community as we can. So we have myself and two other people who throughout the day, we have someone whose full-time job is other than customer service is dedicated to this, where we just talk to our customers. We talk to our community. We go to their social media pages. We ask questions. We comment. We don't even talk about our hats. If someone posts a picture of them fishing, we say, "Oh man, that place looks awesome. I've been wanting to go there." Or, just we start a dialogue. We start a conversation and try to, be a real person on the other end, not just a faceless corporation. And by doing that, we've established a lot of strong relationships with these people who are, like we say, we're your friends at Findlay Hats and we got your back. And we try to illustrate that through all of our one-on-one direct communication with our community. And that is something that we've seen over the years just be, really helpful with building that strong community, building a loyal customer base, and this has been good. So early on, that was huge, and to this day, it's still huge. The only thing that's really changed is our advertising budget. We spend more in a day now than we spent probably in our entire first 2 years in advertising. So that's one thing that's changed for sure is strategic social media advertising.
Yeah. Well, your point about building a community, I think, is a really excellent one. And lots of times entrepreneurs feel that, well, my product's so good, I don't need to focus on these other things. It's just going to sell itself, and it may, but this notion of building community, I believe, helps you build customers for a lifetime. And, it's that repeat customer that I think is the real solid foundation of a lot of businesses.
Yeah, 100%. We wouldn't be here without our community. We call them the Findlay Force.
Yeah. So how big is the business now? How many employees, for example?
So I was listening to your podcast in the shower this morning, and I was trying to count how many employees we have right now, because we've actually we've had to hire on a few new people these last couple of weeks because we're seeing a surprisingly explosive growth in the middle of a pandemic. So we've had to bring on a couple of extra hands. So we're up to 14 employees now.
Very nice. So approximately, I'm not calibrated at all. How many hats a month is that you're selling?
And I'm not calibrated on that either. It kind of varies. If we were having like a large wholesale order to one of our manufacturers, they're in the tens of thousands, but the exact number, I definitely don't know the exact amount, but it varies because some months we'll have heavy like wholesale hats where it's a bigger amount. Other months we'll have heavy, like higher detail custom stuff, or we do like one of one. So it kind of varies, but we're getting, hundreds out a day.
Yeah. And, well, that's a very nice business. And what do you see in the next couple of years for Findlay Hats?
It's such interesting times right now because we're talking. I don't know if we can date it or not, but middle of May 2020, and back 2 months ago in March, it was so uncertain. We took out a loan because we expected sales to plummet, and needing the loan to stay afloat and stay in business. And that just hasn't been the case. Like I said, we're seeing some pretty surprising growth in the middle of this pandemic. And because we have no idea if this will last for another week, another month, 2 months, a year. We don't know what this current trajectory we're on will look like. So as far as what we're hoping for, we're just holding on. We're just trying to save what we can, have a security in case things do really start to drop off for businesses like us in the future. But at the same time, we're seeing such explosive growth that we haven't seen in years. I mentioned social media advertising a little bit earlier. We've seen growth like this before, right when we first started more strategically advertising. And we couldn't keep up with our demand at the time. This was in 2017 when we upgraded from the garage with 4 people to a warehouse with 8 people. So we saw explosive growth at the time, but I was afraid to add fuel to the fire and take full advantage of it because we couldn't keep up, because I wanted to make sure we had all of our systems perfect and, good to go before we started to scale. And what happened was when we finally got everything caught up and I wanted to, add more fuel to the fire and keep growing, it just stopped. The funnel stopped working. We saw a major drop in sales, and it actually ended up being a pretty difficult ordeal because of the situation we kind of were in due to drop of sales, but being prepped for scaling and kind of over prepared. So I don't want to make that same mistake again, which is why we're faster to make the hires. We're faster to make the infrastructure improvements. We're faster to take advantage of the situation while we still can, because right now the results are as good as they'll probably ever be when it comes to social media advertising and bringing in new customers into your sales funnel and into your community.
Yeah, yeah. As you were saying that, it made me think, reflect back a little bit. Years ago, I was part owner of and ran a bicycle manufacturing business, a very high-end custom boutique bicycle manufacturing business. And I got into it. I knew nothing about manufacturing bicycles, but through a couple different connections, it just kind of happened. And one of the things I figured out was, yes, indeed, we sold really high-performance bicycles, but fundamentally what we sold was something that made people feel good. And I think your hats are very similar to that, right? When people buy something like this, they buy it, they put it on, they feel good about it. And I think oftentimes when maybe, we're going through a COVID crisis like we are now, people want to feel good, right? And it may be counterintuitive, but I can often see how for some of these types of products, feel-good products, sales will actually increase because it's giving pleasure to people. It's making people happy. It's making people feel good. And so that's wonderful for you guys.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. The normalcy, people want what's normal. And I listened to an interesting podcast with someone from Klaviyo, the email, I don't know, the email provider. We use them, and they're great. Highly recommend them for anyone looking for email funnels and sales flows and all that good stuff. But he made a really good point that it's like the hierarchy of needs and like where people stand on what they need to survive. And once it comes down to creature comfort, that's kind of the stage that we're in, and that's why people are grasping towards what's comfortable. They're grasping for that little piece of normalcy. They want something that makes them feel good, like you said. And I think our hats are definitely filling that void right now, and we're lucky to be in that situation where we can do that. We're lucky to be in a situation where our states stayed open for warehouse production jobs like us. And we're also lucky that we've also tried to take other opportunities with this too. We've been making medical face shields for local hospital or for regional hospitals, and that's just been another cool little piece that's been able to keep us afloat through this as well. Yeah,
very nice, very nice. So if you reflect back, from day one of starting Findlay, what's been the most surprising thing to you that has happened? The most unexpected thing, I should say.
Let's see. Unexpected. The first thing that came to mind is just how difficult it is to lead and manage a team. When I started this as a side project, just to sell some hats and make some money on the side, I didn't really think about that I'd have to improve as a leader, especially as a two-person operation. There's a lot of interesting dynamics that anyone that manages or leads a team will, I feel like, can attest to. That it's definitely just an interesting, surprising challenge that I'm up for, and I'm honored and happy to do it. And I try to lead by example and be a good influence and person for my team. But I think the most surprising part is that in order to sell a hat with a lace on it, you have to manage a team and deal with HR problems and hiring, firing, all that stuff. So I don't know if that's the answer you're looking for, but that's the first answer that came to mind. There's been plenty of other little surprising speed bumps along the way. I guess another on the positive end too would just be how beneficial strategic advertising can be. And I feel like anyone that's not that is in our space or is in e-commerce and does not consider themselves to be a social media advertising expert, that they are just crippling their potential for growth. Social media advertising, when done right, from my experience, has been an extremely surprisingly positive, major impact on our brand. So I think for years I knew it existed. I mean, everyone sees Facebook ads, everyone sees that on their feed all day. But it was surprising to see it in practice actually working to scale a business. Yeah. So those are my two answers.
Yeah.
That.
So with respect to that social advertising, did you hire someone to do that? How did you develop the skills and the background to execute on that?
So 2017, we were seeing a down year for the first year ever. Up until that point, we had doubled every year in size. And we were just seeing a down year. And I was like, okay, like something has to change. And I forget what originally got it in motion, but I just came to the conclusion I needed to understand Facebook advertising better. And when I say Facebook advertising, I mean, through Facebook ads, all of their networks. So their audience networks, Instagram and Facebook. So I just looked up online a couple courses through Udemy, and I think I took 2 different 10-hour, I forget, pretty long courses through Udemy. They're like $15 a piece. And they were, I think I got them on sale, but I mean, you can always get stuff on Udemy for sale. They're like Facebook mastery courses. So I took those 2 things, and then I kind of skimmed through the Facebook Blueprint course online as well. And then just kind of hit the ground running. I had a pretty simple strategy for bringing in new customers, advertising a simple video that explains who we are, what we're all about in a minute or less, to an audience of people that are similar to our customers that don't already follow us. We had a good offer. We had strong creative. We had a good landing page to convert them. And, with that little simple recipe, we were able to, I think for the first month, we saw a 10 or 15 return on ad spend, 10, 15x return on ad spend, which is insane. And now, I mean, yeah, that's just really good. I miss those days. But that's, I guess, how I initially started. I took courses online. I dedicated about a week of my full focus and energy just on taking these courses, taking notes, screenshotting stuff, experimenting. And then I just hit the ground running with these new tactics.
Yeah.
And then so started it with them, and then I ran it myself for a while until it got to the point where I couldn't really keep up with it. And so I started, I forget the exact order when we started working with people, but to keep it simple, we've worked with 3 different agencies varying from $700 a month up to $4,500 a month. And no agency has ever been able to do better than myself with our advertising. And that has never shined more than this year in particular. Last year, we were running with an advertising agency that was really expensive and really well organized, and they made really good, helped us make good content. And they were, had all the bells and whistles, and they were just excited to have, or they were not excited, but they were okay with us having a 1.4 return on our advertising across the board.
Right.
And that's our break even return. We're not making money on that. We can't really scale that. And we were spending a lot with them, and it was rough. It wasn't working out well. So we dropped them late last year. We changed our strategy, and now our return is at least 2.5 to 3.5. And on average, I want to say it's around low 3s for our full account, which is at scale completely. I'm super happy with where that's at, and that's just me at the controls of that right now. At the trade-off of, I spend a considerable amount of time in our ad manager dealing with it every day. I know some people are not going to be impressed by a 2.5 or 3 or 3.5 return, but in the apparel accessory space for headwear, I'm completely happy with it.
Yeah.
We're able to grow, we're able to maintain that. So I stand by those numbers. We do work with one company for retargeting, and that's Shoelace Technologies. They're an app within Shopify, and we've used them pretty much often. We've used them twice now. The only time we just stopped working with them is when we did the large company that did everything in-house. But they handle retargeting, and they consistently do a really good job for retargeting, and highly recommend them for retargeting. But I handle all of our prospecting, all of our new products, all of our engagement, all of our video view, and I enjoy it. It's interesting to kind of come up with a concept for something creative, think you understand your audience, think you understand how it's going to, be played out. And then it's cool to see those results trickle in and succeed and do, bring in sales.
Yeah. Yeah. When you start a business, I think you said in the beginning, there was 2 of you, and as the business grows, you have to let go of things. You have to delegate things and let other people do them. And we just kind of went through an example where you took some of that, you hired an agency to do some things, and didn't work out as well as you wanted, and you brought it back in-house, and you're doing it. But how do you go through that process, or how? Let me ask it a different way. How challenging was it for you to sort of let go of stuff and sort of let other people do various different aspects of what you were doing when there was just 2 of you?
I think different people may have different answers to that within Findlay. There's some things that are more difficult to hand off than others. Like, for example, customer service. Customer service was one that I would spend 1 to 3 hours a day, every day for years dealing with. So, figuring out order problems with orders or warranty stuff or anything like that. So passing that off was a major stress reliever because it would give me anxiety every single time I had to open our customer service app and go through all these emails, and it would be a negative highlight of my day. And it wasn't enjoyable. I was happy to fix the problem, and we have, really strong customer service. It's not like, we're dealing with, upset people all day. But it was, it's my baby, and it was just really tough to see issues and have to constantly do that every single day. So that one wasn't too difficult to hand off. And we have 2 really great customer service agents on our team that are just awesome and super helpful there. And I really trust them. So that was one that was extremely easy to give off and pass off. But talk about engaging with the customers, how that's a big piece of it. That was a little bit more difficult to pass off because, being front-facing representative of the brand, that has more or less been my voice for years. So passing that off to other people to kind of represent the brand, represent how we handle things, who we are, the brand identity more or less, that was a little bit more challenging to pass off. And the other thing too is photo and video stuff. Passing that stuff off is another big challenge. So it varies from task to task. If you ask our old employee who did marketing for us, who helped with videos and some social media stuff, I imagine she would say I was a little over controlling and had too strong of a creative vision on things and maybe limited her creative vision or her creative freedom. But then you talk to other people, and I might be a little bit more forgiving or more, maybe not forgiving, but more open to change and bringing other people on.
Yeah, sure. And, finding that balance is challenging. It's always challenging. And the balance is different for different people. So, that makes it even more complicated because the way you delegate something to one person may not be exactly the same way you can delegate it and give the level of delegation to another person.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
So as the manager, that makes it really challenging. So as the founder of this business, when you go to hire somebody, what tips would you give people for when they think about hiring someone into the organization?
I feel like I'm not the best source of hiring because I don't know if I'm the best source for that. I've hired from groups of friends and friends referrals almost entirely. We've never gone through Monster. We've never gone through Craigslist or anything. So pretty much everyone here is a referral through a friend or a referral through someone who already works here. So I know that's not a standard way of hiring, but that's what's worked for us. And at least for our community or our company culture and vibe, it's worked pretty well. We have a pretty friendly, chill work environment where everyone gets along pretty well, and it's a pretty laid back, chill, good spot. And I think a part of it is because it's kind of been networked through friends of friends, and that side of things.
Yeah. Well, don't sell that method short there, because I actually think that the notion of referrals from within your own employees, so to speak, right? The employees have a vested interest in things going well. So they're going to bring in people that they believe can do a good job and have confidence in. And to me, that's much more of a strong statement than anything it says on a resume or anything you can get out of a 2 or 3 hour interview. So I actually think from what you're describing, that it's a superb way of moving forward on that kind of stuff.
And I just feel a lot better about that now. Thank you for that. Yeah, I'm going to run with that. You're right. That was the intention from the beginning.
Yeah, right. I mean,
but it's definitely working. It's totally working. And granted, we've had a few situations that didn't work out. We have had to let people go. We have had drama and problems. But I mean, at large, we have seen success and currently have a really strong, good work environment with a good team of hardworking.
Sure.
people that I'm honored to be working with and happy to have them here.
Yeah, yeah. So if you were introduced to a early 20-year-old person who's thinking about starting a business, what are kind of Jimmy's 3 hot tips that you would give them to help them, motivate them, or to help them to say, don't do the business, or whatever your advice is? What would you tell them?
First, you just got to do it. Like we kind of touched on earlier, you absolutely, like, if you have an idea, the most important thing is just to get it out there into the world and fix it and improve it and make it better as you go. Don't wait and sit around for the perfect day. You have to just get it out there and do it. 2, you have to learn from your mistakes. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. I make mistakes every day, and if you're not learning from it, it's making you worse. If you're learning from it, you're improving every day. So learn from your mistakes. That's cliche, but it's cliche for a reason, because it's true from my experience that, the mistakes are just, if you dwell on them for being negative, you're not going to get anything out of it. But if you just try to learn the lesson, you'll improve next time and hopefully not make that same mistake again. You'll be a stronger person. 3, I think you have to love what you do. And I love creating. We kind of touched on that earlier, come from the photo background. But a business is like the ultimate form of creating. We're taking something that doesn't exist, be it a hat concept, a design, a colorway, whatever. We're taking something that doesn't exist and bring it into the real world. And then, providing that physical, tangible good to another person. And then we're promoting that person to go out there and have a good time wearing that. So, it's a cool, I love the creation process end to end. I love the production that we do. I love I love creating end to end. And I love what I do. And it feels really good to wake up every day and come into work and see that, this little company that started from $1,400 in a little plastic box of hats to where we are today with a 5,500 square foot warehouse and a bunch of big machines and laser cutters and 3D printers and all this cool stuff that I geek out. I love the machines that we have here, and I love watching our stuff run and building that stuff. I absolutely love that stuff. And at the same time, like I kind of touched on earlier, I have dedicated my 20s to this. Like, I'm balding a little bit. I'm 28 years old, and there's some balding back there. And it's like, I definitely didn't have a fun 20, whatever, I think 22 that I started it, right? Yeah, ish. And 21, I don't know. I didn't do that much stuff in my 20s. I spent a lot of time working 80, 100-hour work weeks building Findlay, dedicated every single day to this company. I've not taken one day off this entire time. Like, there's been days where I've done less emails and less social media, checking than others. And I've obviously left the warehouse and gone places and done things, but it's been a long, bumpy road, and I've totally missed out on life experiences. I haven't gone to friends' weddings. I haven't gone to things because I've had other engagements that I had to do, or I've had work stuff that I wasn't able to leave. There's been so many sacrifices involved in this, and any business owner can attest to that. I don't stand out because of that aspect of it, but what makes it all worthwhile is the fact that I love it. I enjoy what I do here. I enjoy coming to work every day, and it makes those long hours and sacrifices worth it. And I'm building something I'm proud of. I'm building something that I hope will be around for a long time. And, I wouldn't change any of that for the world. So find something you love and run with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great advice. When you're doing something that you love, then doing those 80, 100-hour weeks doesn't feel all that bad.
Absolutely.
So Jimmy, if someone listening to this podcast wants to check out Findlay Hats, where do they go?
So our website is findlayhats.com. That's FINDLAYHATS.com. Same on social media at Findlay Hats on Facebook and Instagram. Those are our 2 main hubs of social media. And then if anyone has any general questions or wants an explanation or me to dive in on anything we went over today, or has just anything at all, feel free to email me at any time. I'm always happy to answer any questions. you may have out there. Like I said, I've made plenty of mistakes, and I'm still learning as I go. I'm in no way an expert in a lot of areas, but I can share my experience that has worked for us and got us to where we are today. And I try to be as transparent and open as I can to help anyone that is interested in the learning. And my email is jimmy@findlayhats.com.
That's great. And I will make sure all of this contact information is in our show notes. Jimmy, you've been a wonderful guest. You've shared some great insights with our listeners, and I really appreciate you being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and make yourself a great week.
Thanks.
Well, Bela, that was a great interview. I mean, what an interesting guy, lots of energy, great story, right? I thought it was a cool example of opportunity recognition, as you said in the intro, literally building a cool business around a commodity from the ground up with just some, the innovations that he made, they weren't really expensive, and it's not something that's earth-shattering, but they're practical, they're useful, and they help him stand out in a really crowded market. He built a small local brand, and there was a great quote in there when he talked about, well, we wanted to be this local brand, but we also had a growth plan. We wanted to grow bigger than our local brand. But it was neat how he started with this local flavor and then had this really cool kind of growth plan to export this all over the country and all over the world. And it really was kind of through word of mouth, through personal selling, used social media really well. But I thought it was really great. So from your standpoint, maybe put your VC hat on, Bela, as I often ask you to do. How do you evaluate a company like this? So, it's run by an amazing entrepreneur. It's got great branding, but it's really a pretty easy to imitate product.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the lessons that I learned in the VC business is more often than not, the entrepreneur is more important than the product or the company. And I think this is an example of that from a VC perspective, right? The chances of the VC firm I was part of investing in a company that makes hats is probably pretty low. And that's just because of the economics of the VC business. Given the way VC works is you have to be able to invest in companies. You have to make a $2 or $3 or $4 million investment in a company and buy 20% of it with the hopes that you can sell that business for $100 million. I'm not sure there's been any hat companies in the last 15 years that have sold for $100 million. So chances are, from that perspective, one would not invest in it. However, Jimmy is amazing, right? You can just feel the energy. You can feel his creativity. And whatever he hitches his wagon to, he's going to make a success. So I would certainly bet on him. And, this notion of identifying opportunities and then actually doing something about it. And then the notion of understanding how to build a community. And as you stated, both in the B2B world and in the B2C world, that's business to business and business to consumer worlds. That is really important. And in today's digital economy, most companies have to reach out to those both of those worlds because they're great market opportunities. And Jimmy understands how to do that. He understands how to do that using social and leveraging social. He understands how to leverage community, build community up around it. And again, community is a great driver of product sales. And so I would certainly bet on him. I think he's going to be a great entrepreneur. And I think one of these days we're going to look back on this episode and say, hey, we talked to Jimmy back when he was running his hat business. and because his name's going to pop up again is my prediction.
Yeah, I'd buy anything from this guy, right? He could make me excited about cardboard, right? Or old socks, I mean, it's neat. He just had this really cool attitude, I think, and energy. And it was great. So, yeah, I really do think that you're right. And I think it should be a great example to everybody that you don't need to invent something in medical products, or you don't need to invent some sort of amazing digital business model, or you don't need to invent 5G wireless technologies to be successful. That you could take something simple, make it better in some simple ways just by thinking about problems that people have and making their life better. You're on the boat and the wind's blowing and you need the hat not to blow off. And right, the idea of putting a pocket in these things, right? I mean, how many times like, oh yeah. So it's just looking around and making something better. And you have to make a better mousetrap or a better widget, but it doesn't need to be high tech. And then the key is connecting with your customers. And there's lots of different ways to do that. This isn't the only way, what Jimmy did. It's a great way, right? But you got to find a way to connect with your customers. And off you go, right? He's leveraged the internet in great ways, but he's not defined by the internet, I think, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, well said, Mike. We've had several entrepreneurs on the show in the past that have taken, as you said, not high-tech ideas, right? Not super great inventions, but have fundamentally taken fundamental businesses, tweaked them in a little way, either from providing better customer service, providing a better way to engage with the customer, modifying the product slightly, maybe to put a little twist on it. And they've all been successful. So I think it's a really important point for people to realize, you don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to invent the new operating system or some new technology in order to build a successful business. There are lots and lots of opportunities around us every day. And you can be successful at it. And I think this is a great example of that.
Yeah, one of the connections that he didn't make directly, but it struck me, is he's a photographer, right? And that was kind of where he started. And to me, when you're looking at the world and looking at the world around you with clear eyes and saying, what am I seeing? It's things that you might look at every day, and you're trying to see the angles and the light and the color and the shapes, and you're trying to see them in a way to capture them. And I wonder, maybe I'm reading way too much into this, Bela, and maybe I've put too much sugar in my coffee this morning, right? But to me, it's like, okay, when you look at the world, kind of trying to look at it through new ways and new eyes every day and kind of framing the photo that you're looking at in the world around you, maybe sometimes you see things a little different. And maybe the baseball hat that you're wearing, right, isn't just a baseball hat. And you can see it in some different ways. And maybe that's too cheesy, okay? But I kind of thinking like a photographer, and it's like, all right, what am I looking at today? What am I looking at right now? What am I looking at when I sit in my office and I sit at my desk, and how can I make it better? And so I wonder if people kind of take that attitude is, let me look at this like I'm taking a photo and I'm framing the photo and what's missing.
Yeah.
And if you can figure out what's missing that would make the picture complete or make your life better, that's an opportunity, right? That's a way to make a simple change in what you're dealing with to make it better. Now, whether it's putting a pencil holder on the side of your coffee cup, or it's making a place to put sticky notes on the side of your keyboard or something like that, right? Is, okay, let me look at this with fresh eyes and how can I make it better in a simple way?
Yeah, I really like the way you said that, Mike, because I'm a firm believer one of the key elements of being a successful entrepreneur is opportunity recognition. And a big element of opportunity recognition is observing people's behavior, is observing, various different situations. And you're linking this to the eye of a photographer is interesting, right? Because a photographer can take something that, 4 million people have already looked at, but take that picture in a certain way that is different than all 4 million of those other individuals who looked at it. And that's exactly what's going on here, right? The ability to take something and look at it differently, through a different lens, I guess, so to speak, and then do something with it. And I think this opportunity recognition and observation is a real key important. That's an important element of entrepreneurship, and I'm really glad you brought that up, Mike.
Thanks, Bela. There wasn't too much sugar in the coffee. Yeah. It kind of reminds me of a really important lesson that one of my good friends who's a really good photographer taught me, because I would take pictures while I was walking down the street and I wouldn't stop. And he's like, your pictures are going to come out way better if you stop, plant your feet, right? And really look at what you're taking a picture of and really look and see, even though you've walked by this way 1,000 times and you've seen this building or this tree or this flower 100 times, stop, plant your feet and really look at it and get it framed up and get the angles right and make sure the light is right, and you'll see it in a new way. And we can write a book about this. We can use this photography as an allegory for opportunity recognition. Never mind. That's a horrible idea. Okay.
Well, no.
What do you think? Should we wrap this up before I get completely out of control?
Yeah, let's wrap it up, Mike. I think this was good. I really enjoyed my conversation with Jimmy.
Yeah, cool. And some really cool takeaways, right? It's obviously everywhere around you is opportunities, even commodity products. Building a great community is huge. Building that community through one-on-one conversations and meaningful interactions, not just posting a snap on Instagram, is really important. And then leveraging your network and his tribe, as he calls it, right? On both the B2B side and the B2C side, whenever possible. I think those are great takeaways from today.
Yeah, I agree, Mike.
All right. Well, listeners, we've done it again. Thanks for joining us this week. I hope you found the last 45 minutes or so interesting and thought-provoking. And if you have questions about what Bela and I discussed or what Jimmy brought up today, suggestions about topics in the future or some potential guests, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. We'd like to hear from you. Our email is bela.and.mike@gmail.com.
And please do subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. You can find it in all of your podcasting apps and just hit subscribe. It's free. We have lots of great guests in the pipeline. So until next week, signing off from upstate New York. Have a great week, Mike.
Thanks, Bela. You too. From over here in Münster, Germany. Auf Wiedersehen.